please speak up, but please raise your hand if you can't hear us properly. My name is Catriona Murdoch, and I'm a partner at Global Rights Compliance, otherwise known as GRC, and I'll be moderating today's event. I'd like to thank the National Endowment for Democracy for its generous support and our sponsors today for this event, the Republic of Korea and Canada, and also the United States. I'm also delighted to introduce our partners and co-host the Transitional Justice Working Group, who are a leading organization with extensive expertise in abductions, arbitrary detention, enforced disappearances committed in North Korea. We have a really distinguished panel of experts and dignitaries whom I'm going to introduce in turn. But before welcoming His Excellency's welcoming remarks, I wanted to briefly begin by giving a small introduction to GRC's work in the North Korean human rights space. We are an international law and development firm, and since 2020 we've been operating as a DPRK team, and we've been involved in a number of projects seeking to pursue accountability and improvement of human rights in the North Korean space. Since preparing this side event, we have witnessed the largest mass repatriation of North Koreans from China back to North Korea, where they will face lifelong detention, torture, and possible execution. In October of this year, up to 600 people, mostly expected to be women, were taken from Chinese detention facilities, put into buses and vans through 5 crossing points at the border. Their fate remains entirely unknown. Neither China or North Korea have confirmed or denied this recent violation of a number of international laws and protections. Today we are privileged to hear from Ms. Kim, whose sister was part of this recent mass forcible repatriation, and who herself escaped the brutality of this regime in 1997. I wanted to end this opening by remembering the landmark 2014 UN Commission of Inquiry report, which stated that the gravity, scale, and nature of these human rights violations reveals a state that has no parallel in the contemporary world. And nearly 10 years on from that report, this statement rings more true than ever. Of note, last Thursday, on November the 28th, the Republic of Korea's National Assembly passed a resolution urging an end to China's forcible repatriation of North Korean escapees to North Korea. It condemned the Chinese government's arrest, detention, and forcible repatriation of North Koreans and urged their protection. Urged them also to respect the principle of non-refoulement and to facilitate movement to South Korea or a third state if they so desire. Given this hugely important development, it is fitting to open this event with His Excellency Ambassador Kim, who's here today, and who's going to share some introductory thoughts to this session. Ambassador Kim began his current position as Deputy Permanent Representative of the Republic of Korea in January of this year. As a diplomat with the Korean Foreign Ministry since 1994, he has served in key leadership positions in Seoul and abroad during a distinguished and extensive career. This includes most recently as Director General for the International Policy at the Ministry of National Defense in Seoul from 2020 to 2022. Prior to this, Ambassador Kim was seconded to the Office of the Director of National Security at the Office of the President for 2 separate terms, and he also served as Director to the North Korean Nuclear Policy Division, as well as Director for Human Resources Management at the Ministry. His diplomatic career is long and distinguished, and I welcome you to this event, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the kind introductions. I almost forgot to know from my diplomatic career, but you reminded me about history. Very interesting. I have to thank you for joining us today at this event organized by the Global Rights Compliance and the Transitional Justice Working Group. As moderator briefly mentioned, being a South Korean diplomat and particularly having been involved in DPRK issues during the most of my diplomatic career, I really truly commend these two organizations for their unrelenting efforts to broaden the scope of North Korean human rights advocacy and bring accountability for systematic, widespread, and gross human rights violation in DPRK. We are very well aware of this internal knowledge. Of course, my gratitude also goes to co-sponsors Canada and the United States. She said, this year marks 10th anniversary of the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry, we call it COI, on human rights in DPRK. This is a real landmark report. The landmark COI report in 2014 concluded that DPRK human rights violation may amount to crimes against humanity, marking an important breakthrough in addressing DPRK human rights issues, including pursuing accountability that we are going to discuss today. The repercussions led to the adoption of DPRK situation as an official agenda item at the UN Security Council in 2014, and the establishment of OHCHR sole office for monitoring and documenting DPRK human rights violation in 2015, as well as the appointment of the group of independent experts on accountability in 2016. In addition, the Korean government established the North Korean Human Rights Archives in 2016 as a part of collective efforts to hold DPRK human rights perpetrators accountable. It is very unfortunate, but since the adoption of the COI and decades has passed, but yet there has been no significant improvement, particularly issues of accountability. However, I believe that our efforts have not been in vain. For example, the work of monitoring and documenting DPRK human rights violations in the ROC, as well as through UNOHCR, will be the basis for the next steps toward legal accountability, which is serving as a warning signal to perpetrators and providing a reliable channels for victims and survivors. We know, and you all know, holding those DPRK perpetrators accountable would be a long journey. But I'm confident our efforts, like we do today, will be felt. The voices we try to send today will be heard by the Pyongyang in one way or another. Our government is carefully reviewing various countermeasures and options, including those suggested in OHCHR's 2023 report on promoting accountability in DPRK. Furthermore, when Korea joins the UN Security Council next year, we will use all the available opportunity to renew our commitments to improving DPRK human rights situations, while redoubling our efforts to work with other partners, including the civil society. It is therefore an opportune and a significant moment to have this panel discussions to address accountability for DPRK human rights violations. I seriously look forward to a fruitful dialogue today that can uncover creative solutions to these ongoing challenges. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for that optimism, and we certainly look forward to seeing your tenure in the Council next year. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Head of Delegation, Mr. Alan Kessel, Assistant Deputy Minister of Legal Affairs and Legal Advisor from the Canadian Government, who has flown in this morning for this event. Mr. Kessel has spent a large part of his career negotiating bilateral and multilateral instruments, ranging from extradition treaties to the establishment of international criminal justice systems to prosecute perpetrators of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Mr. Kessel is a lawyer called to the Bar of Ontario in 1981, and after several years in private practice, he's also joined the Department of External Affairs and International Trade. He has also held numerous positions in the Legal Affairs branch of Global Affairs Canada, including those of legal advisor, deputy legal advisor, and the director of the United Nations Criminal and Treaty Law Division. It is a pleasure to welcome you. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you and particularly those who joined us today. It's a pretty packed schedule out there, so I do thank you for being with us. Many of us, of course, have been here since the weekend because of the International Criminal Court deliberations, and we have just survived the election of judges process. So, congratulations to you all. But as Canada remains deeply concerned by accounts of serious human rights violations in North Korea, we welcome this opportunity to co-sponsor the side event on seeking creative accountability pathways for North Korean human rights, together with South Korea, Global Rights Compliance, Transitional Justice Working Group, and the National Endowment for Democracy. Human rights are universal, and pursuing accountability for grave human rights violations is essential, as is improving the living conditions of the North Korean people. Canada will continue to work closely with the ROK and other partners to highlight and address these abuses, including through co-sponsorship of events such as this one, and through the work of our embassy in Seoul, which is actively supporting South Korean civil society organizations working on human rights in North Korea. And consistent with the joint statements made by Prime Minister Trudeau and President Yoon last May, Canada remains committed to strengthening cooperation to protect and promote human rights in North Korea and seeking avenues to fight impunity. Canada is pleased to co-sponsor the General Assembly resolution on the situation of human rights in the DPRK again this year, and it's important that we maintain international attention on Pyongyang's abysmal record, both by using UN instruments such as this resolution and by giving a platform to individuals like Ms. Kim to help them be agents of positive change. And we trust that the experiences that will be shared by the panelists, whether experienced personally or reflecting the experiences of others, and the findings resulting from them will fuel our reflection on the approaches we might take towards justice and accountability. And thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think on that note about hearing the voices from the region and really having a moment to reflect, I think it's an important point that you make. I think too often those most affected by breaches of international law are not represented on these panels. And we are very fortunate today to have as a panelist with us Ms. Kim, who can offer such a much needed, unique and needed perspective. As we'll hear later from Ambassador Turner from the United States, it is critical in our approaches to justice and accountability that we have a survivor-centered approach, and that we listen acutely to the needs of those most impacted. Ms. Kim Kyu Li is originally from North Korea and embarked on a remarkable journey after defecting from North Korea in 1997. Between 1999 and June 2003, Ms. Kim's path led through various Chinese cities, and during this time she honed her culinary skills working in kitchens, and on her journey that brought her to South Korea, where she continued that career as a restaurant worker until 2007. Subsequently, she's moved to my hometown, the United Kingdom, in November 2007 and has settled there successfully. There, she successfully ran a Korean restaurant until her sister's recent and forcible repatriation to North Korea, making her sister one of those 500 individuals that we talked about earlier. It's a pleasure to have you, and please, you have the floor.
My name is Kyu Li, and was thank you in Spanish. I escaped North Korea in 1997 July, and from before the 1995, my mom passed away. From that time, my life was over 2 years. And my sister, I have big families, but my sister was served the army. She was not home. I was 18 years old. And my younger sister is 12 years old. And my father was very sick and he came to support us. So from that time, I just care for him. And 2 years of my life was very hard. So I decided to escape North Korea. And after escaping North Korea, the broker directly sold to Chinese Korean men was married. What it was, I was lucky, I met really kind people, and I believe it's very good. They helped me a lot. And I sent letters, 1998. Every time I sent a letter to my family. I in China now, I'm living with my daughter. Anything wants, can just come see me, and I will help. And my brother came over to see me, and I helped him some money and families. After my brother go back to Korea, he directly arrested from the North Korea police, and then he went to jail for 2 months. In that time, my younger sister actually lived out in the family. So one of the broker told her, if you go to China, you can see your sister and you can have food, you can feed. Because she was very young. She trusted him, she just escaped North Korea. Broker. And when his broker came and they go to my mobile telephone number, my hospital number, they called us. When I talked with him and I say, please be safe with him. I will come tomorrow because I live Headingjang, far from it's near the border. Just be safe for her, protect her. I will come tomorrow. I will early morning by ticket. It will takes 15 hours by traveling train. So I will come over tomorrow. Just I come for my sister. I will pay money. After 2 hours later, I just feel not very good. So I call back again that number. In that 2 hours, they sold my sister to Chinese men, over 30 years old men. And forced wedding. So I just so pleased to him, please just let me know where is she. When you send her. They said, no, I don't know kind of that person. You called the wrong number. Keep saying that, but voice is the same. Voice the same man. I called it the same number, but they just hang up again, many times. But I keep trying, every year I keep trying calling, but there's still no any answer. From that time I lost her, and every year I continuously, find my sister. I came over I escaped North China to South Korea. I found one of the websites, North Korean website there. There a lot of North Korean writing, find families from there. So I put every year, continue, say everyone. If not everyone, just let me know. But no any answers. And 2007, I come over UK and stand there working hard because I just believe for myself. If I working hard and making money one day, each other, I will help bring to me. I I hope she alive. So continuously, non-stop work, I just continue, work, start continue. And when 2020, in coronavirus time, suddenly January, one of the niece in South Korea, she contacted me saying, "Aunt, I think we found the youngest aunt. I saw from Chinese chat group, chat app, WeChat. She put on there, 5 sisters. She writing father's name, mother's name, and sister's name, date of birth, and everything she wrote. So I just, suddenly I can't even, what should I say? So just directly I just download app and then contact with them. And my sister, I didn't trust them. First, because maybe they used my, copy of that for money. So just tell her, can you send your picture first? I have to know, even we are long time separate, but I can't remember your face. So when she sent it, exactly, can you see? She's exactly like me. Exactly like me. So yes, it's you are. From that time, we every single day we contact each other and video call and ask a lot of things about past. And she told me every story about last 23 years. When she's sold to that man, 1998, directly she got married. And she gave birth 1999. Now she got one daughter when she was 16 years old. So when she's gave birth, and I think that's a place, very, very poor countryside. And her husband don't let her out because she bought her. She doesn't want to let her run away. So she just 20 years stayed with family. She brought protect for their daughter and then for family. Stayed 20 years. She working hard, farmers, everything she wanted and make money. And after 20 years, she slowly forward to live in the city, then greenhouse, coming out, and then she met Chinese Korean, North Korean, and she found South Korea church. It's like Korean church, but it's pastor is South Korea. She starts to meet Korean people. Last 20 years, she lost all Korean language. She just spoke Chinese, so she doesn't know, she just remember about the address, father's name, family's name. Only she remember that. So that she can find us. And but anyway, it's her life. Even I don't see, I didn't see, I can see, her life what's going. And when we keep contact, and I told her, please, you come to UK. I will help you come out because we don't have any visa and status. And just everything is a secret. She can't go to work. A Chinese police nearest her house, and every year call North Korean women, and then get 20,000 yuan, 2,000 yuan, Chinese money, collect from them, and they say support you. If anyone deport, we will support you, protect you. So they collect money like that. After But it happened this year, January, and my sister got coronavirus is very badly. And because of coronavirus time, everything is locked down. I couldn't help her came out from China because no any broker wanted to do it. So I just said, you just be safe in there. I will one day, and will be coronavirus will be passed. In that one, I will gonna help you. Just wait. But coronavirus time, this January, my sister very bad coronavirus because she got sick very badly. But Chinese hospital, they don't help her at all. She couldn't go to hospital, she can't have any support. From that time, my sister just suddenly, after getting better, she just called me, sister, I want to go. Just take me. If I stay here, you will die. Doesn't matter. Anyway, if I stay here longer, you will die. Because nobody cares for her. Just only their family first. So okay, I will wait. But not easy to find a broker. It was just China March and they it's a finished lockdown. But anybody brokers are not easy to come. So you keep finding. But suddenly my sister, 5th of April, my sister called me, say, sister, I will leave soon. Because in the church, Korean church, help us to take her to Europe, maybe South Korea, maybe but first to go to Thailand first. Go to Thailand and then by to South Korea or come to me. Church helped her and included two more North Korean ladies. They are thrilled and hard. That is the last word I hear her voice. And I just keep waiting. Oh yeah, maybe she will answer me. She will call me in Thailand. But no. Waiting 15 days after my niece called me and said, Aunt, my mother in jail right now. So what happened? She doesn't know she could not. She ought to go to see me. Okay, you go. That time my niece was pregnancy 8 months. She married last year and she pregnancy 8 months. She just full autonomy and she went to jail. Wanted to see mother. But the police officer just show her on the screen in the jail room. Show her this is your mother or not. Just to check they want to correctly is the right person or not. When she saw exactly her mother is there. So she said, yes, this is my mother. After that, the police sir just stopped, let them go. So 2 times more she will be in there, but they don't show her mother. And 9th of October, suddenly my sister called to her daughter. I think she pleaded to police officer, please, last time I want to tell you, just let them know where I'm going. So she put police officer, accept using his mobile and then call to my niece and say, just short sentence, say, I'm sent back to North Korea. And the police catch the mobile and then that is the last word. Still now, where is she? How going on in North Korea? But I have very bad experience because of my brother and my sister, older sister. My brother died in the jail because of a lot of punishment and he died. Nobody knows where the body. So very bad experience. So I'm scared for my sister. Just help her. Anyone, just help my sister and North Korean people still left in China jail. A lot of North Korean people in the jail. I just hope one day. Say about Thank you.
Thank you for your courage for speaking and telling us your story. I think in the story of your sister and your family. I mean, the more I hear from people like you, the more it motivates, I think, the work that we do and the attention that is needed on this situation. And it highlights the type of crimes and the pain that this has, not just on the victims itself, but on the family members who are left behind. And I think it also highlights that this is a human rights crisis that impacts 25 million people. Stories like this are common. The range of extreme crimes that we hear about and we've heard about just now from you is a perplexing blind spot for the international community. I think with the international gaze now fixed entirely on Gaza or systematic deportations in Russia, these crimes in North Korea are unabated and unacknowledged, and I hope that these events and your attendance at them will start to change that. When we started our work, one of the things that we wanted to look at was what kind of practical accountability pathways are there? How do we engage with people like you and your family members? And what is the hope for justice and accountability in this space? And we produced an accountability strategy report, the short version of which is available online. Given that there was a significant interest at the time in the International Criminal Court from the North Korean human rights community, this was a pathway that we spent some time exploring. Now, of course, the route to the ICC is not an easy one, for the North Korean regime being not a state party to the Rome Statute, with a Security Council referral very unlikely, and there being temporal jurisdiction aspects as well for some of these crimes, particularly those deportations that occurred before 2002. But in the auspices of this court, we would like to encourage pragmatic optimism and creativity, and for the court and its wider tentacles to support the North Korean human rights community, who, as Mr. Kessel said and Ambassador Kim, have been working unrelentlessly and tirelessly to document and search for avenues for this situation to be heard. In relation to this work on documentation and case building, especially on the crime of forced disappearances, we can now turn to our partners who we are privileged to work with, the Transitional Justice Working Group. And today with us we have a large number of their team, which we're delighted to have. And speaking with us on the panel is our dear colleague, Shin. He is a legal analyst at the Seoul-based human rights organization, and he has been, along with colleagues, interviewing North Korean escapees in South Korea to record enforced disappearances and other grave human rights violations. Their organisation have made submissions to the UN Working Group on enforced disappearances and enforced or involuntary disappearances, and other UN human rights experts on behalf of their reporting. They've set up an incredible digital platform called Footprints, which is an online database of the people taken by North Korea, and it really is a testament to the work that they have been doing. Ethan is an advocate for the reform of South Korea's joint interrogation procedure for newly arrived escapees from North Korea, and the creation of a fact-finding commission for the Korean War-era prisoners of war and South Korea's domestic implementation of the International Convention of the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. They really are the leading organisation and have extensive expertise on abductions, arbitrary detention, and enforced disappearances. Ethan, it's a pleasure to have you, and I think having heard from the other panelists today, you really operate in a unique space and are acutely aware of the challenges of how to monitor and document these violations in a space that is so closed like North Korea. Perhaps if you could speak to some of the efforts of documenting and monitoring and how to map meaningfully this chain of command and the work you've been doing in that sense for accountability.
Thank you very much, Kat, for that warm introduction. We just heard this very heart-wrenching story of Ms. Kim about her sister, the complete lack of information about how where she is right now in North Korea. Given this kind of very close nature of the North Korean state, it's easy to assume that there's very little that can be done about this very tragic situation. But our work at TJWG for the past 9 years point to possibilities to further the accountability for these grave human rights violations, some of which amount to crimes against humanity. Our organization was actually founded in 2014, and we were inspired by none other than the report from the Commission of Inquiry on the DPRK. And as you may see from the screen, the COI concluded that there are 6 types of crimes against humanity perpetrated by the North Korean state, and which includes actually the crimes against humanity, crimes that have been committed against repatriated North Korean escapees, which Kim's case, sister's case, falls under. Next slide, please. So, with respect to this, the most recent deportation case from China, the COI actually stated that basically the actions of the Chinese officials in sending back these North Korean refugees, and also not only that, but sharing the interrogation records with the North Korean officials amounts to aiding and abetting of crimes against humanity committed by the North Korean government officials. And this, we have produced these maps with the latitudes and longitudes of coordinates of the detention centers from China to North Korea, which illustrates how the route through which the North Korean escapees are sent back from China to North Korea. So the next slide shows the south, the western part of the border, where from Dandong in China to Shin on the North Korean side, we have heard of the part of the 5 wave of repatriations happening on October 9th. Next slide, please. Next slide shows the zoom in map of the repatriation from Chiang-Mai to Kessel, also taking place around that time, same day. And last zoom in map shows the deportations that took place in the northeastern part of North Korea, which is called North Hamgyong province. And you might wonder what kind of fate awaits North Koreans who are sent back from China to North Korea. And these are the actual human rights violations that the COI and report, and also our recent survey of the North Korean defectors have noticed. It includes, so basically for the North Korean escapees who have had contacts with South Korean missionaries or government officials, or who have attempted to defect to South Korea, they are considered political prisoners, and they are treated much more harshly and sent to political prison camps, which are called Panelists in Korean. Whereas the lesser criminals who have been to China for more the business or commercial reasons face somewhat reduced but still draconian punishment in regular prisons called Kyu-Li. And some of these, especially for the political prisoners, face public executions or other state-sponsored killings, as well as, we have heard of many escapees facing rape or other forms of sexual violence, as well as forced abortions in some cases of the pregnant women, because of the North Korean government's ideology that they will maintain this kind of pure race within North Korea. We've also heard of torture and the forced labor that's been forced upon the North Korean escape attorneys as well. All these amount to crimes against humanity under international law. Now, so how can you actually map the people who are really responsible for these atrocities taking place in North Korea? That's the kind of project we've embarked upon. And this is something that we built upon from the COI report's work from 9 years ago. We continue to identify the main institutions that are involved in the commission of these atrocity crimes in North Korea, which includes the head of the President of the State Affairs Commission, Kim Jong-un, as well as the main departments of the Workers' Party of Korea, the ruling party in North Korea, and the Ministry of State Security, which is the secret police, which actually has its own prosecutors, judges, as well as investigators. So basically, they can process political prisoners all within the MSS, with they basically serving as the jury, the judge, and the executioner. So these are the main institutions that we've identified. Next slide, please. And North Korea being this kind of a communist Marxist-Lenin state, we see the dual government party relationship. But at the pinnacle of both the North Korean state and the Workers' Party of Korea, we have Kim Jong-un, who's the third generation leader in charge of the whole country through these two branches of power. And we have identified the MSS as the one of the most important organs to carry out these crimes against humanity. They, for example, are in charge of the political prison camps, Pariso, whereas the MPS, Ministry of People's or Social Security, they run the more regular prisons, and the MND, the Korean People's Army, also has its own military security command that also is responsible for many of the human rights violations in North Korea. So the kind of information, data sets that we have been collecting for the purpose of this kind of accountability work in North Korea can be divided between in-house data that TJWG has been collecting, as well as the open source data that's really available in the public domain already. So the first collection of data that we have been gathering concerns the geolocational information. We started out by asking our interviewees, North Korean escapees, about where they witnessed public executions, where they witnessed the bodies being buried in secret afterwards, as well as the locations of the main government offices where the relevant documents would be housed. And this would include the Ministry of State Security, the Prosecutor Service, and other organs of the North Korean state. And these are the coordinates of the MSS headquarters, and as well as its local offices that we have thus far identified from interviewing over 800 North Korean defectors in the past 7 years, which have been plotted in this map of North Korea. You can see these little red and yellow spots. They indicate the MSS offices spread out in the North Korean state of the country. We have also had a separate team that have been surveying the North Korean escapees about their family members who have gone missing or were disappeared by the North Korean authorities. And we have interviewed over 50 people for this purpose, as well as collecting information about the abductees and the POWs who have been taken from South Korea to North Korea over the past 7 decades. And again, these are the Excel spreadsheets that compile the human rights violations, as well as the locations of these human rights violations that we have heard from our interviewees. From the open source data side, we are in the process of collecting information from the news outlets that actually have sources within North Korea. Now, this may sound very difficult to believe, but some of these news outlets have maintained sources or people who share information about the situation within the country about North Korea from within the country. And again, we try to come up with this on Excel spreadsheet to again compile the human rights violations, as well as the details of these human rights violations, including locations, their locations as well. Interesting enough, we also found a lot of information about these individuals, very high-ranking officials usually, in the North Korean state media. This is an official publication called Shin, which is actually published by the Workers' Party of Korea. The South Korean government has also provided many publications about some of the information. This, for example, lists the high-ranking figures within the North Korean state. This was published by the Ministry of Unification in South Korea. And we've used the information to basically come up with a spreadsheet that kind of compiles who belongs to which organization, and from which time period to when that these people served in their posts. And last time, and also for another important source of the open source information is actually the targeted sanctions list that have been produced by the U.S., South Korea, Japan, and other countries as well. And again, we have tried to compile this in a more systematic manner into this kind of spreadsheets for our accountability purposes. So going forward, we are planning to host a conference on DPRK accountability next April in Seoul. And we will continue with this data integration and analysis for the accountability work. And we plan to publish a report next fall on this subject to coincide with the Security Council discussion of the North Korean situation. So based on this kind of information and the work that we have been doing, what can the international community do to further this accountability process for North Korea? And these are some of the concrete ideas or proposals that we have had. Obviously, with respect to the recent deportation, we believe it's important to actually call out China's basically role of being an accomplice to the crimes against humanity committed against the North Korean deportees within the DPRK. And this is especially important because there are still hundreds of North Korean prisoners in Chinese detention facilities who are sitting ducks who can be sent back to North Korea at any moment to share the same fate that Ms. Kim's sister is currently facing. South Korea, the Republic of Korea, and other like-minded states can also publish more information to using satellite imagery or other human intel sources to make the public know about the location and size of the political prison camps and also the detention facilities in North Korea. Also some of the North Korean laws that are not made public and also have been made public by the South Korean government. That process can be expedited. And also with respect to these MSS and other security organs in North Korea, it will be helpful if the South Korean government or other governments will publish information about these organizations. On the more, the judicial accountability side, We have seen a number of civil and even criminal cases brought in South Korea, Japan, and the United States against either the Japanese government, against the North Korean government or the North Korean officials to hold them accountable for these human rights violations. And we hope that this process will continue, especially in the absence of the ICC or other international criminal justice process working on North Korean issues. And in fact, we believe that the ICC's Office of the Prosecutor can and should also have a dedicated person in the office to research more about the DPRK situation, prepare for this kind of in the event that there is this kind of political transition in North Korea, which would allow these investigations and prosecutions to proceed. And it's also important to note that next year marks the 10th anniversary of the COI, and many in civil society or many in the civil society have been asking for this kind of a 10-year update to the COI report to highlight the more recent trends of human rights violations in North Korea, preferably with the human rights security expert, so that issues such as the diversion of resources from social welfare to WMD development, or the recent reports of North Korea supporting of the Russian forces in Ukraine by supplying artillery shells to the Russian side, as well as the international abductions of South Korean, Japanese, and other citizens as well. And lastly, this is something proposal recently made by civil society, including the International Commission of Jurists and also the Oxford University Institute for Institute as well, and which is to create a standing independent investigative mechanism, which could cover countries like North Korea to further ensure the accountability process. So I would like to conclude by saying that even though the situation in North Korea is quite deplorable and it's easy to be to just simply despair, but there are concrete works that can be done by both society and the international community, and that we should make these efforts going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a huge amount that we've done, and it just shows in 10 minutes the kind of work that you're involved in and the innovative mapping that you've been engaged in. I think, as Ambassador Kim said, accountability is a long journey, but regime change can happen. And I think my colleagues in particular at Global Rights Compliance, those that have worked on international trials and in the space of international justice, know acutely that that pace is slow and that there are particular challenges in this space, but I think that also there's a lot of opportunities, and it doesn't mean, despite those challenges, that we shouldn't try. We're going to close the event with just a short video from the Special Envoy on North Korea's human rights issues, Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs from the United States. Ambassador Julie Turner was sworn in as the Special Envoy for North Korea human rights issues on October of this year. She is globally recognized as an expert in the area of human rights and democracy, and has worked over the past 20 years to strengthen democratic institutions and promote human rights throughout East Asia and Pacific region. So hopefully this will work.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to start by thanking the Transitional Justice Working Group and Global Rights Compliance for inviting me to participate today. Thank you as well to the event co-sponsors, the Republic of Korea and Canada, for hosting this event on seeking pathways to accountability for the DPRK's human rights violations. I'm sorry I'm not able to join in person today. As we all know, the 2014 report of the UN Commission of Inquiry concluded that systematic, widespread, and gross human rights violations have been and are being committed by the DPRK, its institutions, and officials, which, in many instances, constitute crimes against humanity. As noted in reports from the UN Secretary General last July, and from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights last March, the UN continues to receive credible information that human rights violations are ongoing in the DPRK. The DPRK's human rights violations and abuses are inextricably linked with its unlawful weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile programs. It is the repressive political climate that allows the DPRK to divert such a large share of resources to weapons development and away from the population's needs and economic development. We remain deeply concerned about the DPRK's ongoing human rights violations and abuses, and recognize the need for continued attention by the General Assembly, the Human Rights Council, and the UN Security Council. Yet despite repeated calls in UN resolutions for accountability, there remains no progress in securing accountability for human rights violations in the DPRK. Among the many acts the COI listed as crimes against humanity, I'd like to highlight two that may get less attention, yet also remain at the forefront of our concerns today. First, the COI concluded that the long-standing issue of abduction of foreign nationals, primarily from Korea and Japan, and prisoners of war, constitutes crimes against humanity. Many such victims are no longer living, yet their families deserve to know what happened, to have remains returned if possible, and to receive justice. Time is running out for those who may still be alive. These cases need to be prioritized. Second, we're also deeply concerned by reports that the People's Republic of China forcibly repatriated hundreds of North Koreans in October. In December 2013, the Commission of Inquiry wrote a letter to the PRC in which it summarized its concerns relating to Beijing's policy and practice of forced repatriation of DPRK citizens, and expressed concern that such acts could be aiding and abetting the DPRK's Commission of International Crimes. What I would like to do today is outline how I and my colleagues in the State Department think about possible pathways for accountability in this challenging situation, and hopefully stimulate a lively conversation that helps us to work together to build a path forward. First, I believe that accountability should be survivor-centered. This, to me, means minimizing survivor re-traumatization and documenting human rights violations and abuses in a manner that supports accountability standards. Our processes should support education so witnesses understand their rights, particularly with regard to privacy, and what purpose their testimony will serve. As we seek to engage witnesses with this social psychological care in mind, we should also explore other tools that can help support investigations that also reduce re-traumatization. For instance, witness testimony can be supported by broadened research into the chain of command of organizations with direct responsibility for human rights violations, including the Ministry of State Security. Testimonials can also be corroborated through satellite imagery or official state documents. Our documentation efforts also require greater collaboration across governments, civil society organizations, and the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. We should follow well-established practices for consolidating, preserving, analyzing, and sharing information. It's an honor to be presenting to such a distinguished group of experts, so deeply committed to accountability efforts and promoting human rights in the DPRK. Your partnership is critical, and I'm grateful for the tireless efforts to engage with, advocate for, and support survivors. I know many of you have been in this work, supporting survivors for decades. I know how much heart goes into working on North Korean human rights, and I commend you all for your efforts to do so with compassion. I also want to commend the brave survivors who shared their testimonies publicly and stand on the front lines advocating for accountability, including today's panelist, Kyu Li. I also applaud the brave survivors who share their testimonies in private. This also requires a significant amount of courage. Thank you. I hope the discussion today will center around tackling documentation in this extremely challenging environment as a shared task, and that the community of practitioners will work together to establish a process that is survivor-centered and provides truth, justice, and reconciliation for the people of North Korea. as well as others impacted by the DPRK's human rights abuses. Second, I'd like to discuss some of the possible avenues for accountability. There are a variety of pathways that could be considered, and some are particularly unique in this context. The Commission of Inquiry in 2014 and subsequent UN resolutions have recommended a referral to the International Criminal Court. Other accountability mechanisms referenced in UN resolutions include prosecution in a foreign country that could articulate a valid jurisdictional basis, potentially including universal jurisdiction. The availability of such prosecutions would depend on a number of factors, including the scope of the country's domestic criminal laws, whether it criminalizes the same or similar conduct, and whether its courts may exercise jurisdiction over such offenses, even if they took place in another country. The exercise of universal jurisdiction has delivered some positive results elsewhere, most recently in Europe regarding ISIS and Syrian perpetrators, and in Senegal with the prosecution of Chad's former dictator. Are there any analogies or lessons to be drawn from these examples? Thinking towards specific mechanisms that can help shape the international community's work, both in terms of investigatory documentation and other forms of support, are conversations that I hope will come out of today's session. As we document gross human rights violations and explore potential accountability mechanisms, we should also consider other actions that support and promote accountability. This can come in the form of financial or visa sanctions. Naming and shaming North Korean perpetrators using sanctions can serve to demonstrate to the DPRK regime that we see what's happening in the DPRK, and we will not remain silent. It also sends a signal of support to the people of the DPRK, who need to know that the international community sees them. It can also serve as a potential deterrent to would-be human rights abusers. In 2016, the United States designated 23 entities and individuals associated with or responsible for serious human rights abuses and censorship in the DPRK. We continue to designate North Korean officials for their complicity in serious human rights abuses, and other governments, including the EU, have taken similar actions. In closing, I would like to add that UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in the DPRK, Elizabeth Salmon, currently has a call for inputs on the progress and accountability for human rights violations in the DPRK, with a deadline of December 29th. Given the expertise in the room, I'm sure today's discussion will cover the full range of accountability options and help contribute to making greater progress possible. Thank you for your hard work to improve the human rights situation for North Koreans. I look forward to working with you, and I look forward to learning more about the outcome of today's discussion. Thank you.
And I think while Ambassador gives a bleak assessment, bleak but accurate assessment of the lack of progress on accountability, there are, as she mentioned, pathways that could be explored, and those that we've analysed in our reporting as well. I think we really need to collectively and creatively bring international criminal law to its full potential, as well as continuing to use events like this as a rallying call for greater awareness and action for the victims and survivors of the North Korean regime, and to continue to shine light on this global blind spot. What is very clear to me from this event and others that we've been involved in is that we cannot remain silent on this issue. So thank you very much for your attendance and your engagement. We've run out of time, I'm afraid, for any Q&A, but I would like to thank my panelists and distinguished experts, and thank you for sharing your story again. There is some lunch and refreshments outside of the Vienna Cafe, I think, down there, if it's not all been taken already. Please feel free and maybe to have some exchanges there and questions that you might want to ask. Panelists, I think some of us will remain there, so please feel free to continue the conversations.